Hi everybody, welcome to Woodfired Weekly at Manna from Devon Cooking School, where this week we're going to be cooking a winter tagine. And by winter tagine I mean we've got some lovely winter vegetables. So we've got squash, we've got sweet potato, we've got carrots, we've got a bit of pepper, onions and garlic and things in there as well. But those nice filling winter vegetables and warming spices, so coriander, cumin, cinnamon and some harissa to give it a lovely warmth. And a tagine is just a stew, pure and simple. So it can be a stew, and often, of course, it's with lamb or with chicken, occasionally with fish. We're just going to do a vegetarian, nay, vegan version here today. And we're going to use a nice gentle heat in the wood-fired oven, or sort of moderate heat, I should say, in the wood-fired oven, because we're only cooking these vegetables. They don't need to cook for a long, long time. So first of all, I'm going to cook some onion and sort of get that cooking a little bit with some softness to it. So I'll pop that in. The oven's sitting at 200, maybe just below 200, so certainly not fierce. To the onions I'm going to add a little bit of ginger, a little bit of garlic. Nothing here needs to be particularly finely chopped. It's going to be a nice coarse stew. Mix those together and pop that back in the oven. Now at this point, if I wanted to, while I'm just sort of starting this stew, I could add a little bit of smokiness to the fire. So if I got a bit of fairly damp wood, this sort of thing, and pop that on the fire, it'll smoke and smoulder a little bit because it's been outside in the rain. Just to get a little bit of wood smoke, campfire smokiness to it. But not very much, because I don't want to add any more heat at this point. The oven's going to do all the cooking for me. It's got enough retained heat in it to do that. I'm just going to add a little bit of smoke. The onions, garlic, ginger have had a few minutes to cook. Sizzling gently in the pan, and now we're going to add the spices. Stir those in, and as much harissa as we dare. This tends to be quite hot. They do, of course, all differ, but it gives a very, very distinctive flavour. And now we're going to go with some tomato, stock. We've got a vegetable stock here. And then add the vegetables. I've got quite a lot of vegetables here, but they are going to soften and break down. So we're going to pile them in. Quite often as well you get a little bit of fruit in the tagine to add a natural sweetness. We've got lots of tomatoes. That's certainly going to bring some natural sweetness. And all of these vegetables, when they break down, they're certainly going to add natural sweetness. But if you want to bung in a handful of dried apricots at this point, that will be fine. And then I'm going to let this cook for a little while and then add some chickpeas. That's just a tin of chickpeas. They're already cooked, so they only need to kind of warm through. So we'll put those in a little bit later on, when we'll have a little bit more room in the pan. Pop the lid on that. No problem with ceramic at these kinds of temperatures, and no need to use a tall tagine pot. That's a specific pot designed for cooking on an open fire. So it wouldn't make any difference to the finished product, so we're fine with any kind of ceramic pot or cast iron pot or enamelled pot, whatever you've got. We're going to leave that for about 20 minutes now, then have a look, maybe add the chickpeas at that point, and then just cook until the vegetables are done. And really, we're just kind of steaming those vegetables, infusing them with a little bit of flavour. It's not like long, slow cooking lamb in a tagine where we want it to break down and soften the meat. So maybe only sort of 30-45 minutes at the most. The tagine has been in the oven for about 20 minutes. We're going to bring it out and have a look. So steaming away, cooking nicely in the moderate heat of the oven. We're going to have a little prod of those vegetables. Carrots are starting to cook through. Squash is starting to cook through. Sweet potato, all starting to cook through nicely. I'm going to give it all a stir over. And add the chickpeas. Back into the oven, another 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and then it should be done. Whilst the tagine finishes cooking, we're going to talk about couscous, and here's some we made earlier. And for a lot of people, this is really the most boring starch in the world. They go, ugh, couscous, it's really boring. Well, of course it's boring. In its current state, it's very boring. What we have to do is make it a little bit more interesting. So we've pre-soaked this couscous just in water. So we just poured warm water over it, not too much. If you pour too much, it goes claggy. And what we want is something which is like kind of breadcrumbs, nice and soft and fluffy. And then we need to jazz it up. We could add a little bit of citrus. So a little bit of orange, zest grated in there, and then some slices of orange will do wonders to lift your couscous. Just whole wedges of orange like that popped into the couscous. I'm doing this quite quickly, obviously, and that elevates it already to a whole nother level. Then we could add a little bit of onion, spring onion, red onion, whatever kind of onion it wants to be, either sort of pickled a little bit to take some of the bitterness out of it, or very, very finely cut so you don't get big bits of onion in your mouth in one go. But if we just cut this, you know, really, really finely and toss it through, it just adds a little bit of background onionness. So in with a bit of that. Tomato will add sweetness, sharpness, fruitiness. We could add a little bit of spice. So we've got some of these little picante peppers, and they're not really hot. I mean, they've just got a tiny bit of warmth to them, so they're not going to be a big heat number, but they are going to give extra fruitiness. We could have a little bit of fruit. So I've got some apricots here, which I've rehydrated a little bit, just some dried apricots rehydrated. Could also have a few raisins in there. Some of those big flame raisins would be fantastic. A nice hit of fresh herbs will give it some zing. So we're going to go with some parsley. We could also have mint, dill, coriander, and don't stint on the herbs when you're putting them in. Make sure there's a nice big handful. If you think of an Eastern Mediterranean tabbouleh, that's got heaps and heaps and heaps of parsley tossed into it. If you haven't already seasoned your couscous, of course, then we are going to need some salt, pepper as well if you like, and some olive oil, a good gutsy olive oil through there. Generous amount of olive oil, and a final squeeze of the rest of the juice of that orange. So all of those wonderful things have gone in there, all of those different flavours, and when we now toss that together, not only have they added a delight to the taste buds, but also to the eye, because we've got all these wonderful colours mixed in here. So what was a boring bowl of bland, pale looking couscous is now a feast of colour, smells and flavours. So that's ready, and it's time to have a look at our tagine. Bubbling away beautifully, smelling fantastic. Those carrots now nice and soft. Everything cooked, but not down to a mush. So this is a pretty quick kind of stew, only 40 minutes in the oven, 35, 40 minutes, I think that's taken. And you could of course use any winter vegetables in this, so if you've got beetroot, parsnips, swede, all be suitable. Spice things up as much as you like with harissa and spices. A steaming bowl of deliciousness. A nice sprinkle of herbs on the top. Some crispy onions. And a final little glug of olive oil to make it all glisten. A lovely winter vegetable tagine spiced up with harissa and spices. Absolutely delicious. If you've enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where we produce a new video every week. Please leave comments and questions below. We'll put notes and recipe on our blog and put a link to that below the video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.